Alright, let's see now. How's everyone? You keep well? So, let's see. So, just a recap from the last one I made there. That was the 4th of September. It's now 20 days from now. So, description. I decided to do a little folklore and dive on conspiracies to which everyone is really wants answers to in a more or less brief explanation about events from this year 2025 back to 100,000 BC, as I've said before in my explanations. Just recapping on the situation, very important to do that. But like for this scenario though, since I went on to the other one as well, this one really, as I've mentioned, was to do with the moon. Why I talked about the moon, and then why I wanted to educate people in regards to the device that's able to see spectral beings of different realms, I guess in this case, as well as certain gases which emit certain lights. That was that section. For this case, visualization, I suppose. And then the next one was a little longer. Make sure not to have that up. Okay. In this video, I discussed in regards to AIs that have been manufactured in data centers on a large scale from 2011 or 12 to 2025 to having over 8 million data center facilities throughout the world, which have been affecting climate change as such from the period of 2019 to 2025. And then other than that, having a little look on the petrification in regards to the Nephilim or giants or other beings from the Great Flood there, as described in Noah's passage from whichever part of the Testament that has been mentioned. And then I used the video from Dr. Stone, just to recap on that. And I also was touching on other subjects as well. Let's see. Graphs in the change of weather. And organizations evolved. And how Medusa and as well as this artifact could be one and the same as the Leviathan mentioned in the Great Flood. But there's a lot of story that's not been mentioned. So that's why I'm going to do another one. Oh yeah, and also I was meant to do one on Anonymous, now that I think of it. Just give me a second, but to briefly get people up, I'm going to be doing more anagrams, not pentagrams or anything like that, anagrams to decode and decrypt messages in this scenario. Because there's been something that's been bugging me. The other way you get the spectrum of light, then you're able to see from the sample in this case. And it's like, okay, you're using an anagram, but that's just to shift around words. Then you have the spectrometer, which is used to pass through one light, break into a bunch of spectrums, go through the slit, goes through the sample in question, and then the detector can identify what this element is, or its purpose. And then, I know it's kind of crazy going like that, It's going to be in regards to assembly then license. Don't worry, I'll worry about that. There's always an error in the situation. So for now, I'm just going to open up all these tabs. Okay, let's see. Open a new link. Open a new link. Open a new link. Yeah, that makes sense. So why am I opening up the anonymous groups? Oh yeah, I might as well top it off with YouTube Anonymous Official. Yep. Oh, Japanese one? That's not it. Weird. Bit of a rabbit hole with this anonymous group, but why am I bringing them up, do you wonder? You're not the anonymous. Yep, like anything. So we'll go with the description on the YouTube channel. As to who anonymous are, we are anonymous. Oh, so that's their Twitter feed. So, gonna go over here. So really I'm just gonna start with anonymous for this ancient story. And how does anonymous tie into this? Well, in a sense, they're only an entity, right? That people refer to. But here's the other thing. Who are the group known as anonymous? Some would say they are people whose main goal is to let the world know about conspiracies and mysteries. But what for is also known that the FBI or other security companies were involved in this case, posing as anonymous. Because it is possible that anonymous account could have been overwritten at a certain point in time, so no one would know. That's why I've had to open up a few files. Because there are different versions of Anonymous that have been mentioned. But remember, Anonymous is just a group of hackers. This one isn't probably them. But this one, they're the one that's linked to this account. If you use your eyes, you'll probably see that. See? Anonymous news. Well, let's just see. This is the same one. Just to make sure we're not getting off on the wrong side of the floor. Yeah, so why am I going from ancient stories right to anonymous? Because they break down information in regards to a lot of events over the events leading up to 2010 to 2012 when they first became apparently known. Yeah, pretty sure I opened up one of them. kind of strange how they all have different versions of accounts. Yeah, no shit, dumbass. How dare you pause? So that's the one I got caught with before. They are the official ones, though they're not known. Just to recap, Anonymous is a group of hackers with their own agendas and vendettas. So, let's go for a little scroll. How old is Anonymous now? Their account was made in 2012. Remember what I said about the Mayans? Let's see here. Open up. Come on. Basically, back in 2011, 2012, that was when the end of the Aztec calendar ended. So, just gonna go back to this. Because I made it 2 thumbnails right next to each other, so they're handy enough. But because of that, Anonymous sprung into action because the conspiracy informs needed to cooperate and let the world know. Not saying everyone weren't talking in different ways, but information is required, you know? Since I've had this open so long, it's probably acting up. Alright, I'll open it up a bit more. So, let's see. SCAD operating. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So, this was what I did on the first topic. I explained this all in my own relevant ways, writing out the few things that were going to be covered in this in some detail. And I also used some animes and books as reference in the first part, so I was showing pictures of it. So how does Anonymous tie into this topic? Well, let's see. The way Anonymous has been covering certain areas. Now we're going to go to Anonymous's videos. From oldest, I guess would be the best way to start off because it's all just trending. So Anonymous, they operated 13 years ago. As you can see, over the years, they've explained their purpose. They've only started off with short videos, slowly expanding on their documentaries of how they wish to help people. Let the world know their cryptic message. They're gone silent. They're not as active right now because they're very wary of the FBI and CIA trying to clamp down on free speech in this case. Since I'm only a myth, no one's going to be wary of my words, as I do not apparently know of anything from what the intelligent people in the world say. So, as you can see, they've slowly been amassing on information, trying to get the words out. But I've only gone so far. As you can see, social media became a target. That's why I decided to delete my old account on Facebook. Because I never wanted an account. Someone else wanted me to make it. But to the hand of Anonymous, they've been trying to spread their own words and cryptic messages. They've been giving people signs that something mysterious is going on in the spiritual world as well as the physical world. As a lot of people have claimed. But no one ever knew the truth about the whole situation. Yeah, people say there's aliens among us as well as monsters and such. But there's even something more scary that people aren't aware of. Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg's a lizard. Well, he is definitely slimy, I'll say that much. But a lizard is something I won't call him. So, see the way he keeps breaking off, doing more interesting things? Very important. Be aware is one thing I did mention in talking about the ancient stories. Be aware of the situation. Use all your senses. As everything keeps becoming more apparent, and poor Zuckerberg is caught in the crossfire again. Yeah. Remember what I said about the data centers? They're trying to locate information. Though I'm not sure they're all working hand in hand. Everyone has their own agendas. And the parent keeps brought up. Control keeps being brought up. Censorship, manipulation, wealth, elites, hand gestures, old religions and practices, ancient stories about terrestrial beings. See what I mean? What I wrote down, Anonymous already discussed in their own words about the situation of what's going on in the world. That being said, everything you have to take it with a grain of salt. As you can see here, Anonymous has been covering all this to what public information they can. Because there's only been a limit. Because the internet, it's a wide open space, but at the same time, there are certain companies, in this case Google, working with YouTube, could only get the information so far to the public, and YouTube is the most public platform for this. So yeah, scroll along, you can clearly see the Hadron Collider and laser. Because I get the feeling the Hadron Collider and the lasers are connected in some way. Because like you can't make a plasma laser with argon to that extent without doing something crazy. Then you have CERN scientists claim they have opened a portal. That's what the Hadron Collider is what I'm referring to. It'll make sense. But more or less, this is all forms of rituals and such and such. Smoke and mirrors, as you could say. And we're getting to the end of Anonymous's research. Not saying they're not done diving into the situation. Everyone cannot understand what is going on. They say it's holy, others say it's a sign. I just say it's just a recurring story. Just another page from a book of plans to be initiated here. Well, why do I keep saying it's a plan that was already predetermined? Orchestrated by, let's see, Grand Architect, as someone called us? The Creator? I'm not sure if it's any of these. Definitely God knows of it. I'm pretty sure it's not God who's pulling the strings here. Something else. Someone else is having fun. God's just been watching. That's all God's been doing. Trying a bit of help every now and then. They will lock us down again. Yeah, it's not gonna work this time. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times. That's the question. What happens if 3 times? People say there's a saying, but it just stops there because something unusual occurs. Yeah, you're being lied to, huh? Yep, yep. For all this situation is, people are trying to uncover the truth. At the same time, the people who want to be in power, and I'm not saying back in World War II and World War One, something grievous happened. A very sinister ritual took place back then. Because it occurred around Europe. Oh yeah, you know the way I have that thumbnail? You know the way I marked areas around Europe? No, there was a particular marking I did of it. If I were to look it up here. And how it relates to Anonymous' topic for now. You know the way I have white marks X'd off? These areas, what I mentioned before in regards to petrification in the second episode, and how they tie in. Now, you notice where the X marks the spot. Now, of course, there's probably a few other areas that weren't marked, but these are the areas that have been known to harbor Nephilim, all origins. So you have Iceland, Ireland, northern part of Sweden, Finland, Norway, around the areas of China, Mongolia, India, and Pakistan, and Afghanistan, and such. Then you go over to Japan. Let's see. Then over to Australia and New Zealand. Did I get America in there? No, I did not. Okay. So the main issue is here in regards to what Anonymous is saying about certain events. Remember where the First World War happened as well as the Second World War? They took it place from France to around Poland or such and such, but why around that area? Well, I don't know the full extent of the First World War and the Second World War. I'd have to look up the history book. And I'll have to do that in another episode. I do have the Britannica encyclopedias from that time period, so I should be able to get relevant information for the audience to view when I do this in the next one. Because there'll be a lot to cover, and I'm taking it bit by bit. For this one, I'm picking certain topics that will fit into the scenario. So, see the way I have Greece marked as well as Ireland and the United Kingdom? In all these areas, you'll find out later. So, for now, back to the situation at hand about finding out about this. So, the way they've been going over certain events in regards to biblical events, and then Nostradamus and such. Hidden for 100 years, I tried to. Nikola Tesla was right. This could change everything. 100 years, huh? That guy was back in the 1800s, if I recall, when immigration first occurred over to the United States of America. So, as you see, things are becoming more stranger in apparitions, I guess you could say. Tucker Carlson's Bob, don't believe him. He went to the highest bidder, he got screwed in the story. Let's see. That there will be an event happening shortly, because it is the Autumn Equinox. And if I recall, right now, just to save everyone having to prattle on with my own fairy tales, the latest, I could cover it, but I'm going to make a good educated guess by just clicking into it and reading the description. Though it's probably not going to have a description, and it's got none of it says. Victor Davis Hanson leaked the whole truth about Charlie Kirk in Israel. Charlie Kirk events.
No prescription needed. These glasses.
No, it's not. Shut your flippin' yap, you crazy person. So, as I was saying, events, world, Earth, secrets, America, events, news. Please share this as widely as you feel drawn. License, content license. Played Victor Davis Hanson warning, prediction, message. So, I could read the transcript. I'm not saying I've ever read transcripts before, but just to break down what Anonymous reached recent news. So this is auto-generated. Hope it's not AI. So, well, I knew Charlie pretty well. So someone's first person impression of him. So the dialogue goes on for a long bit. So I'll break it down just to make sure it's easy. See if it's just cryptic rambling. So it's reference to past events and how they relate to a certain situation. So, words are one thing, but they use imagery to explain the whole of the scenario. Okay. Anonymous, you have some explaining to do with this. This is why I was worried about with Anonymous. They were going off the path. That's why I gave them that message. They were going off the path. Once they started to do a certain topic, they stuck to it. They were stuck. They couldn't get out. Well, the one in charge of this. So, Anonymous got lost in the sauce, it seems. Sorry, Anonymous. I don't want to figure out much. Oh, yeah. So, come on. Tab, are you not open or are you just acting like it? Okay. Back to the story. I said anagram decryptor. So, we're anonymous to this anagram. And then with the Autumn Equinox. And rituals and the 7 deadly sins for this case. You got your pride, envy, greed, sloth, gluttony, lust, and wrath. So, I'm not saying Anonymous is following this path pretty well, but it's pretty obvious when you think about it. Let's play Anonymous' function, I guess you could say. See how Anonymous ties to each of these things. Pride, the LGBTQ, Antifa, government narrative, pharmaceuticals, and greed, and then the pyramid hierarchy. Without envy, individuals compete to make better devices demands for human society. Well, this is all now what's in the pyramid. Because I'm not saying the 7 sins in the pyramid are the same, but there's definitely a connection. Creating AI model and data centers. Then you have sloth. No motivation, minimal desires and goals, and modernized society out of energy due to demand and supply of the economic growth. Let me just write down of the economic growth. And then with the next bit, lust and wrath. That ties in with more political agendas, I guess you could say. The elites want to commit simple and corrupt the youth for disgusting purposes. As such, with the black market then involving pornography and such, and child labor and slaves going to that with the Epstein files. I mentioned in the first video, the second video in part. Because that's only one example. And I'm going to make examples later on of how they relate to other cults of other countries, especially China and Africa. They have a lot to do with this, sad to say. So, to get back to the hand rather than get off on topic. So, the group known as Anonymous, so I'll continue this. Decentralized internet-based protest movement which organized cyber attacks and demonstrations for freedom against various forms of grievance. And that's what the Anonymous group says. So, we'll go into what it says on Wikipedia. Remember, a lot of things aren't what they appear. Anonymous could be a diversion, or they could be people giving breadcrumbs of truth, you know? So it's hard to know what the situation is with Anonymous. So, as mentioned before, Anonymous is a decentralized international activist and hacktivist collective, a movement primarily known for its various cyber attacks against several governments, government institutions, and government agencies, corporations, and the Church of Scientology, which is atheism, or the one that you're more familiar with, that South Park absolutely roasted them to the sun. Basically, a crazy group of cultists preaching to their own beliefs. Anonymous originated back in 2003 when the internet first started up, on the image board of 4chan, representing the concept of many online and offline community users simultaneously existing as an anarchic, digitalized global brain or hive mind. Anonymous members known as Anons can sometimes be distinguished in public by wearing Guy Fawkes' mask in the style portrayed in graphic novel and film V for Vendetta. Some Anons also opt to mask their voices through voice changers or text-to-speech programs. Dozens of people have been arrested for involvement in anonymous cyberattacks in countries including the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Netherlands, South Africa, Spain, India, Turkey. This is where incidents of, to say, propaganda and control have been taking place that people are probably not aware of. But why Spain? Well, believe it or not, Spain's actually more corrupt than you think in the government and policing. One the same. Supporters have called the group freedom fighters and digital Robin Hoods, while critics have described them as cyber lynch mob or cyber terrorist. That's one way to look at it, I guess, depending on who is the terrorist. And then in Time called Anonymous one of the 100 most influential people in the world, Anonymous media profile diminished by 2018, but the group re-emerged in 2020 to support George Floyd protests and other causes. That's the thing. You know what I mentioned about Anonymous and 2018? And remember when I said about certain journalist groups? Now, I mentioned this in my tweet, so you'd have to look at my Twitter account recently. But don't worry about that. I'll just go to the social media of which the anonymous star is currently changed. If you look back on the day, because it's very likely the FBI got hold of Anonymous's prior account. That's my best guess. Remember, this could be their account. If you look at the most recent one, it talks about Gaza. It's very likely that was corrupted by the FBI. That's only one of many accounts. Just keep an eye on the dates. There are multiple anonymouses you gotta be aware of. This is the one that was probably hacked as well by the FBI. Because if you look at a certain message, you'll see something that they did recently. Because they're talking about certain political things, not in regards to actual relevance. So, give it a moment. Yeah, Macron, sure. That cult full of liars with fake history. Civilization. So wait, they're referring to Russia. I don't think they know a lot. Whoever's using this account, I'm really worried what you're about to do. You're about to get exposed for your transgression. You fool. There's a lot more story in Russia than you believe. They're more in tune with nature than most people realize. That's something I've noticed. The fact they can befriend and train bears says a lot. They're not some creature you can just befriend, and I know that for a fact. As a slothful creature it is. Okay. And then they started to break character when Charlie Kirk passed away, and everyone started to talk about it more and more. You know? Okay. Weird. Almost there. Here it is. For those keeping track, Death Eaters is the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So always the final boss battle. Sure it was. And this is what they tweet. Really annoy people. Not just this. It was a tweet they made beforehand. Where was it? Kind of weird, huh? When you think about it. Anonymous, I really wonder why your agenda is with this account. Here it was. Well, what you did trigger a lot of people. Charlie was the closest liberal making a quick dollar. That was something else. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess you could say. Well, to get back to the story at hand. No point in getting off on it. Because time is of the essence here. Well, like I said, anonymous media profile diminished in 2018, but the group reemerged in 2020 to support George Floyd. This is what I'm saying. Something changed So, to go off from that rambling, because this will go on to philosophy, arrests and trials, Operation Avenge Assad, analysis, history, Project Challenge, Operation Payback, 2011 to 2012, in regards to the Mayan offense. Also just the Prime Minister, most other things too. 2013, 14, 15, 16, like 2010s, 17, 2020, 21, 22. Iranian protests. Yeah, there was a cryptic message. That's why I was wondering. After 2012, Anonymous didn't go the right. And apparently they're in cahoots and Antifa. I don't know if it's true, but they're not the real Anonymous. Real Anonymous doesn't do that sort of thing. People have been tricked. Something to be aware of. Now, more information. Britannica, though, when did the information stop for them? Actually, when was the last update? Last update on 20th of August 2025, huh? That's the chatbot question, huh? Why is artificial intelligence integrated in all this? I know it's a quick search for keywords, but even so. So, in words, it still hasn't changed there. Which account on YouTube is the actual anonymous group? Anonymous official, and then HQ to unknown message. Oh, it's probably just leaks and tips from each one. The roles, huh? They're very mysterious, as they claim. Remember, this is only breadcrumb trails. For thoughts on which account on YouTube is the actual anonymous group. Yep, and that's where the cookie kind of ends with that. Because anonymous is just people whose main purpose is to support a minority group in regards to protests. Which in a case could be Antifa in disguise, but these are not the same. Antifa is one thing. Oh yeah, I should actually type that up. Just to make sure people don't get confused what I'm referring to. Antifa. Because they've been starting to make news. Because really they're the opposite of anonymous. People keep getting the two confused, and I'm probably starting with that. There's anonymous, and then this group. It is. Antifa is a left-wing anti-fascist, anti-racist political philosophy, although it is sometimes described as highly decentralized array of autonomous groups of the United States. Antifa political activism includes non-violent methods. Yeah. Sure it is. If you look at the images, that says otherwise. They are not peaceful. Do not believe this group. Look at that. Look what they've been doing. Like, it's pretty obvious. Yeah, not they are peaceful, my arse. So they're the opposite of anonymous in this case. So, what's the aim? Antifa Vendetta. Because in this case, I'm going to be picking these two secret societies, I guess you could say. Well, publicly known, righteous. And also they're Antifa and Anonymous. Vendetta is for Anonymous and Anti, meaning they're anti everything in this case. They're liars. They don't know what the story is, what Antifa is. And it all makes sense there. So, but as said, Antifa has been going around to different parts of the world just as much as Anonymous, but they're the opposites. Ever since the coronavirus incident, a lot of minds have been corrupted. So you could say a splinter cell effect occurred in the anonymous groups as well as the Antifa groups. As I'm saying, they're not the same. It was all corrupted in that time period. Because you could clearly tell if you look at when was Antifa mentioned. Because they have been around as long as people have stated. Even though it's said they've been around a long time, they're no different than the Freemasons if that's the case. Okay. 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 You know, your manipulation of words don't really get me anymore. Yeah, sure. This is where they all claim it's from. So in other words, they don't have a clue. They never were formally formed. They were only part of an organization, just like with secret societies I mentioned. Antifa being the bad, and Anonymous being the good. Probably the Freemasons or other societies, I imagine. But the main thing is, anyway, after Anonymous, how do I go from there? With the spectrometer, in this case, explain its scenario. From the source, splitting off and then identifying the sample to detect. Then going to the anagram, being able to decipher the good and the bad. Then, these 70 deadly sins. How are they connected to the situation now from there? That is a good point. My apologies for rambling and getting people off topic. So, from there, we're going to have a look at something a bit more different. Well, it's all relevant. Autumn Equinox. The situation is now, as I mentioned before, with the rituals and such going on. The 7 deadly sins. Then, talk about this. Where places are familiar with paganism, I guess you could say, where people believed in the old lore with fae and folklore. Some would say there's like an ancient story of rebirth and death. So, how the heck does that tie in with the situation at hand? Rebirth and death. We'll go to the news, as people have been talking about this. 18 in 2 weeks. What it looks like? Yeah, sure. So in this case, it'll be the United States of America. All this information is going to come for Barry Lord, how to celebrate on the first day of fall. Like I mentioned, to do with paganism. Well, believing in the old ones. And how does that relate to what I've been referring to? You know, it's been in case of rituals and such. Like, yeah, rituals, how Anonymous then and Antifa are splinter cells of a whole situation. I mentioned before, this is a whole fragment story, so you'll have to take it with a grain of salt. So, the next question. Forms of sacrifices don't necessarily mean people actually being killed and such. Sure, those also good cover that. So, if you look at all these things, oh, the Appalachia. Dropped. Strange. Very strange. So, disturbance in the magnetic field out there, huh? Won't be surprised. Why is it relevant to just America? That's the thing. See, where is the equinox most prevalent at this current point in time? Areas of where it's been caused. And why show you these images and such? It's only showing you a fragment. It's not showing you what you really want. So, We'll go to public domain. Sure. Territory killed. Kinda weird. Secret society, huh? See what I mean? There's a lot of strange symbols going on here. So for the autumn equinox, there's going to be a lot of misconstrued conspiracies and such. Also watch out for the Hadron Collider, because if people aren't aware, update on Hadron Colliders. There is news about it. People aren't aware of it, but there has been updates on this. Yep, whatever. Oop, sorry, news. Hints of extra dark matter particles could be hiding in the LHC, Large Hadron Collider. Have you noticed that there have been talk about it more recently? I remember what I said about how the Hadron Collider is breaking off into different bits. And then I'm going to reference back to an old one, just in Night of Daylights. Remember the spectrometer? You know why it breaks off in different particles in light? Because light can only travel in a straight line, and then when it goes through a crystal or a form of glass, that can break off the spectrum of light in the UV light in this case. Then you can see what goes on through a lot of things. And then when I refer back to it, with the Large Hadron Collider breaking atoms off each other, they've been starting to do more experiments again during the time of the autumn solstice, equinox. But the main thing is, just be wary that there's going to be more disturbances in nature, because right now humidity has dropped. Right after that, the energy in the air is going to be more unstable than before. So keep your eyes peeled out for Switzerland and France, okay? As well as other areas that may harbor hadron colliders, may opening up portals may occur down Antarctica in this case. Why I say that? Just trust me. Okay, now we've gotten off topic. Look, let's get to the case of this. Mythical creatures. Why do I need to look at such an idiot person? My apologies, whoever that was. Top 8 mythical creatures as clairvoyance symbols explain. So I'm going to be reading a bit. Okay, and thinking out of a person. Throughout history, mythical creatures have captivated human imagination, often embodying qualities we aspire to or fear. Among these legends, many creatures serve as symbols of clairvoyance, a term that refers to the ability to gain information beyond the ordinary senses. So, the other way, there's probably forms of creatures in the sense of data centers in this case, physical and fantasy. The other way, there have been a lot more AI developments. Not saying it's the same, but you'll see what I talk about once I get through these. These mythical beings often represent intuition, foresight, and connection to the spiritual realm. In this article, we explore 8 of these Sorry, I am exhausted, so my words will get slurred. Fascinating creatures and their significance in relation to clairvoyance. So, we got the phoenix, symbolism of rebirth and transformation. Remember, since it's currently the autumn equinox, rebirth and death, phoenix, prime example. Okay, so what you getting at? What, you're saying there's something like a phoenix? Alright, well, okay, something like a phoenix, you say. Is there any event in regards to the phoenix going on at the moment? So while that's searching, darn it, Phoenix is a legendary bird known for its extraordinary ability to rise from its own ashes after burning itself alive. This powerful symbol of rebirth and transformation resonates deeply with clairvoyance. The act of renewal reflects the idea of new insights can emerge from profound experience, including trauma or loss. In this case, we're unfortunate of Charlie Kirk being the trigger in this scenario for a planned event. I know it sounds crazy why I say it like this, but it's like John F. Kennedy, similar circumstances, different generation. Everyone was traumatized for the loss, so a renewal will begin, sorts. As clairvoyant symbol, the phoenix represents the capacity to see beyond current circumstances, harnessing past experiences to gain wisdom. Yeah, that's why I referenced back to JFK's assassination. It encourages individuals to embrace change and understand that true destruction can come enlightenment. When one encounters the phoenix in dreams or visions, it might signify impending personal growth or a need to let go of old habits for greater insight. Well, I don't know if this is the case for that. I'll just say. Alright. So it touches on the dragon. What's this? Star Trek? YouTube. Wait, what? When did this occur? Okay, it's just an advertisement. Okay. Who is this? Bollywood person? Rama San inaugurates diamond ATM in Phoenix Mill. Well, let's see. Is there any events going on? Benson Boone. Okay. Glendale. Murder mystery. Ah, okay. Harvest Fest. Okay. After a freight crash 4 days ago on the 32nd Street Broadway in Phoenix. So, funny enough, trees are mentioned again, with the Freemasons being somewhat involved. You never know. It's like a hint for something in the news. Huh. So, it's very inconclusive information for now. Just bear in mind, my body is exhausted beyond belief. So this episode will have to be cropped with another episode in order to make a full one. So just beware of the autumn equinox in this case, since America have been looking into it more and more. So, Autumn Equinox 2025, here are the rituals to follow for balance and clarity for the first day of fall. So why would they talk about it so weirdly enough for news? They don't know anything about rituals. Just bear in mind, a lot of people don't know the rituals. They claim to do, but they actually don't. This is all a hoax, since they do not want to tamper with the magical world in the way they expect to. And I certainly do know a thing or two. The autumnal equinox arrives on Monday, September the 22nd, 2025, bringing it to the end of summer and the beginning of fall and onset of Libra season. Balance, huh? The one from the zodiac, the one who balances. Astronomical an equinox occurs when the sun crosses the equator. The term combines the Latin word "aqui" meaning equal or "nox" meaning night, as on this day of nights the hours of light and darkness are equal. Sure they are. Particularly the autumnal equinox relates to the story of Persephone and marks the moment of the goddess descends into the underworld to rejoin her husband Hell. What? Why would someone say in that context? So just Hades? Astronomically, the fall equinox heralds the arrival of Libra season. Libra is the sign of the scales partnership, meaning themes of balance and reflection, collection, and release and deny. What does the fall equinox symbolize? During the equinox, when day and night are evenly split, many people feel a natural pull towards finding or fostering balance in beyond themselves. Sure. In other words, you're just spitballing as you go along with this. Yep, you utter pile of nonsense. Who wrote you? Wiggle Wiggly, you're off smoking hashimi, aren't you? Get off your brain. RTE is doing the same thing as well, which is an Irish one. Maureen McGarry. Yeah, brainstormed alright, yeah, crashed down to the ground. Yeah, Equinox, this is gonna go well for you when you go to do your ritual over at Mead, and trust me on that. This one isn't gonna go as planned. Where Newgrange was, you're gonna have problems this year round. Yeah, I know some. But the main thing is to be aware of that. So what they're gonna be looking for after the dragon, if you think about it, they've been chanting about this ritual for a few years, so they've been trying to get each of these things to occur. The phoenix, then the dragon, the unicorn, and after that, the sphinx, griffin, the merfolk. How strange. And then the banshee, harbinger of change. Watch out for this one, everyone. Vixens are known for this, and they give you a freaking right. Then after that, the chimera, when everything goes into form of chaos, which has been occurring. By chimeras, I mean people being artificially changed into abominations of having one or more genders. Not saying they're all abominations, but messing with your body is not the way to go. So my assumption is they're trying to get to the point of transition, embracing duality, which is very unlikely. Whereas the parts from different animals depicted as having a lion's head, goat's body, serpent's tail, the composite nature represents complexity and multifaceted aspects when our cells are concept critical concept in understanding clairvoyance. Symbolism related to clairvoyance, sure it is. Uh-huh. Yeah, that was never the intention, was it? You liars. So, the other thing to be aware of. So, the companies involved. Why do I want to talk about the companies? You may want to be aware. So mad to know Walmart is the biggest company in the world. Oh, they're doing alright. State-grade corporation of China. Then started in Morocco. China Petrochemical. United Health Group. Apple. Berkshire Hathaway. CVS Health. Alphabet. Alphabet. ABC. It's gone up in revenue, huh? With the data centers, I imagine why. Then you have Germany. Volkswagen. Got up. ExxonMobil. Got up. Votal. Gone down. Commodities. I imagine to do with housing and such. Shell has gone down in the United Kingdom. So Switzerland and UK is plummeted with commodities and resources. Very strange. And China's construction has gone up. Toyota has gone down in Japan. Carson, Concora, and Microsoft have gone up. Then you have Singapore, commodities have gone down. Then the United States, retail and financials have gone up. Then you have China, they've been progressing. Fuel has gone down in France, wine has gone down in Switzerland, oil has gone down in UK. Healthcare has gone up apparently, which is very odd. Well, since they're trying to recorrect everything, the Netherlands still doing good with business, it seems. And then the oil, which has gone down in parts of America because they're trying to procure more oil, so it's going to be a bit of a cost for a time. As you can see, there's been a big fluctuation, bounces and negatives, just to let you know. Because of this, a lot of individuals will start becoming more apparently known. Not saying they're all obvious. There's a bunch of different brands you could look at. It still won't make any sense as to where I'm going with this. But the main thing is, be aware of the changes that will occur. When they occur, you'll see. Just as the ultraviolet light splits off into rainbow colors, only then, from day and night, will then expose what really is happening in this transition of the autumn equinox. And the best way to do that, not saying that it is, just get a bit of glass and look at the sun or the moon for the next few days over the period of when it's transitioning from September into October. So, when the days of September to October occur, every now and then just keep an eye out with your lovely crystalline glass that can split off into different lights from the ultraviolet lights. You'll see something strange going on. In the meantime, Anonymous and Antifa right now, they're at war with each other. That's all that can be said. So there's going to be friction with Anonymous and Antifa members in October, just to be aware, because there's going to be a lot of exposure. And also to be aware, the FBI, CIA, Interpol, all the major industries that deal with providing criminal evidence and capturing such will become exposed with their agendas out for everyone to see. So just bear in mind and keep an eye on all the companies involved. All the security bodies throughout the world. So I'll just get a list of it just so people know. Intergovernmental organizations. Well, let's see now what ones are known. Oh, World Trade Organization. Okay. Like Interpol and CIA. Let's see if they'll give a better example this time. Intelligence agencies, huh? So that's what you're referring to? Intelligence agencies? So what's all the data centers there for? So this is a list of intelligence agencies by country. It includes only currently operational institutions which are in public domain. Public, eh? The list is not intended to be exhaustive. So, an intelligence agency is a government agency responsible for the collection, analysis, and exploitation of information in support of law enforcement, national security, military, and foreign policies. So, there's going to be a lot. So I'll just say their acronyms, if required. Afghanistan General Directive of Intelligence (GDI), Albania State Intelligence Service (SHISH), Algeria Directive of Security Services, Central Directive of Army Security, Antigua Barbuda Office of the Prime Minister of the National Security Council, Antigua and Barbuda Defense Force, ABDF, Intelligence Center, IC, Ministry of Finance, Corporate Government, and Public-Private Partnership. Financial Intelligence Unit, FIU, then Criminal Investigation Department, CID. Then you go to Argentina, Federal Intelligence Agency, AFI, then your DOJ, then your SEF, Federal Counter-Narcotics Services, and National Director of Strategic Military Intelligence. Alright. There's a lot of Argentina, huh? DNIC, SIPA, and UFIA, or Financial Intelligence. There's a lot for Argentina, huh? Armenia, the NSS, then FIS, Australia, Intelligence Organization, ASIO, ASIS, Secret Intelligence, Signal Directorate, ASD, Geospatial Intelligence Organization, AGO. Huh. Defense Intelligence Organization, DO. Office of Intelligence, ONI. Jeez, there's so many to cover here, everyone. Austria with the BMLB, HNA, ABWA, BMI, DSN. Azerbaijan, the DTX, XKX, MMX, like the State Security, Foreign Intelligence, Financial Monitoring. Bahamas, then the SIB, FIU, and CAI. Ah, cool. Band 1, NSA, Bangladesh, NSI, SSF, IB, SB, SDB, FRP, BI, CDI, CTTC, RAB-I, DGF. Ah, as you can see, there's loads of them as you go along. Barbados, Belarus, Belgium, Bosnia and Herzegovina, kind of a joint country. Botswana, Brazil, Brunei, Bulgaria, Burundi, China, or Canada, Chad, Chile, People's Republic of China, Colombia, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Croatia, Cuba, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Egypt, Eritrea, Estonia, Ethiopia, Finland, France, Gambia, Gambia, Georgia, Germany, Ghana, Greece, Guyana, Hungary, Iceland, India. Geez, India has a lot. Suriname, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Ireland. Yeah, the Defense Force. Garda Khan, Domestic Public Intelligence. Yep. Special Division. SDU. NSU. FIU. Yep. They're alright, I guess. The domestic police have really fallen, so it's just down to the defense forces, which is the army in other words. Israel, Italy, Jamaica, Japan. Gee, Japan, you have a lot. You have a lot. Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Kenya, Kyrgyzstan, Latvia, Lebanon, Liberia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Madagascar, Malaysia, Malay, Mexico, Moldova, Mongolia, that one, Montenegro, Morocco, Myanmar, Namibia, Nepal. Well, it's just the military right now because the government got overthrown, just for people to be aware of, because it was very corrupt. Then you have the Netherlands, New Zealand, Nigeria, North Korea, reconnaissance is right, North Macedonia, Norway, Oman, Pakistan, Palestine, sure, whatever you say, Panama, Papua New Guinea, Peru, Philippines, Poland, Portugal, Qatar, Romania, Russia, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Serbia, Singapore, Slovakia, Slovenia, Somalia, South Africa, South Korea, Spain, Sri Lanka, Sweden, Switzerland, Syria, Taiwan, Tajikistan, Tanzania, Thailand, Trinidad and Tobago, Turkey, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom, United States, Uruguay, Uzbekistan, Venezuela, Vietnam, Yemen, Zimbabwe, European Union. How is the European Union one? They suck. No friends are CTG, I guess, and then the EUMS, Satellite Center, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Ah, rats. That's a lovely name. Beware the rats, everyone. But yeah, just to give you an idea, this is what you have to compete with nowadays. With what intelligence agencies you have to worry about. And don't worry, it'll make sense when Tifa and Anonymous as to what the situation is with them. So, I'm going to talk about the next part in the ancient stories. And where do I begin? I know it's a bit of an odd one, but I'll be beginning with something a bit more far-fetched. Apocalypse. Why am I starting this part for the ancient story? It is a bit strange. Not something people expect. So, just to give you a rundown why it's meant to be connected to this long old story. Apocalypse is referred to many names. That's the thing. It also would mean revelation. Like there is something called the Book of Revelations, which leads me to believe there's a story about apocalypse, not just being a word, but a person maybe, or an entity. So I'm going to read what the article has on the Wikipedia for apocalypse. Now, it could have been edited or changed in recent years, who knows? But based on what people's intel would lead to believe from ancient Greece, revelation disclosure is a literal genre originating in Judaism in the centuries following the Babylonian exile. And that would have been back before Christ, so from 597 to 587 BCE era, but persisting in Christianity and Islam. In Apocalypse, a supernatural being reveals cosmic mysteries or the future to a human intimacy. So what do you know? Apparently Apocalypse is a person. And in X-Men there is reference to such a being. Apparently some form of alien or something. So let's just have a quick look at what Apocalypse is in this setting. Now, why am I looking into Apocalypse? But there's a lot of reasons, so we'll find out. In this case, Apocalypse is also known by Sabah is a supervillain appearing in the American comic books published by Marvel Comics. He is one of the world's first mutants, which leads to a lot of things. Why do I say first mutants? Because in another scenario, in a different genre, there was one not long ago made. Why is Sonic even there? Basically, in a genre called Undead Unluck. Apocalypse, also known as the Book of Revelations, is not just an artifact, but a sentient entity and a crucial component in the narrative of Undead Unluck, serving as a loyal servant to God or Son. Apocalypse is instrumental in the administration of the quests that dictate the actions of the Union, a group of negators determined to thwart God's plans and end the suffering imposed upon the world. This medium-sized book, distinguished by its brown leather cover and gold-plated corners, becomes animated when communicated, revealing a monstrous face that belies its true nature. Positioned at the heart of the conflict between humanity and the divine, Apocalypse's role is pivotal, acting as the arbiter of the challenges that the Union must face in their quest to kill God and alter the fate of the world. Now that's a bit of a strange tale to inquire, but there is a lot to look into, and now as we go into X-Men, since this is going to be different, so it is one of the first mutants, so as the Apocalypse is in Dead on Luck in this scenario, Let's see where the story of this apocalypse begins. Hmm. Okay. The being would later be called Apocalypse is born with the mutant X gene thousands of years ago in Aqabab, a settlement in ancient Egypt. So ancient Egypt, huh? Now it's very likely if we look into this more. So copy this because pronouncing this word always confuses me. Apocalypse. Apocalypse and connection to ancient Greece. Or not Greece, Egypt. Greece and Norse mythology. The Greek, Mayan, Mesopotamian, Hindu beliefs all included a great flood that has happened or will happen. The Norse and Egyptian mythologies claim whenever the world does end, it'll be swallowed by the universal sea. So, remember in my previous talk about, Medusa or the Leviathan in this case? There's a lot of stories that lead to believe that Apocalypse or Ragnarok or other versions of this, there's something about it. I'm beginning to piece together, so I've been taking my time to slowly comprehend the meaning of all these beings. And this seems to be an article spanning from 1 to 42 pages, it seems. Now, we could look in all the details, but just to keep it simple about the context of Apocalypse itself from the Wikipedia, okay? So it's going to be a bit of reading involved, so bear with me, everyone. I really need to put in musical instruments in the background, just to give more tune. It does help. I really need to improve on the tune whistle. It's been a while. So, the means of meditation include dreams, visions, and heavenly journeys, and they typically feature symbolic imagery drawn from the Jewish Bible, cosmological, and pessimistic historical surveys, the division of time into periods, esoteric numerology, and claims of ecstasy and inspiration. Almost all of them written under pseudonyms, claiming as authors venerated hero from previous centuries, as with the Book of Daniel, composed during the 2nd century BC, but bearing the name of the legendary Daniel from 6th century BC. So this story about the apocalypse has been on my mind for a while. Why do I think it's involved with the ancient story? How else do you think the world's been constantly resetting for humanity's species anyway? Not saying, but there has to be a connection with this whole scenario. And the fact that my assumption is from 100,000 BC, I'm assuming that's when apocalypse started to come into play, as well as other divine beings. But before then, it was just the Neanderthals, our ancestors that weren't tampered or artificially enhanced, or now their version known as human sapiens, And this is why I think Apocalypse has a role with humanity, and why everything's been changing every few hundred years. Things are always getting reset behind the scenes without the public knowing. Like, they know, but they're not sure where the source is. And this is why I wish to find all these fragments and associate their stories, find their connections throughout the world. If it's on the surface or below, I'll have to look deeper. Because in the heart of the world, you'll find the very remnants of ancient civilizations back in the day. Eschatology, from Greek eschatos, last, concerns expectations of the end of the present age. Thus apocalyptic eschatology is application of the apocalyptic worldview to the end of the world, when God will bring judgment to the world and save his followers. Now the word is a bit butchered, so let's see what's the definition when you look at it. It is a bit of a tongue twister. Eschatology concerns expectations of the end of present age, human history, or the world itself. End of the world or end times is predicted by several world religions, which teach that negative world events will reach a climax. Belief that the end of the world is imminent known. And you know the way with certain secret societies are playing a narrative and assuming that the world will end sooner than expected. As you've seen on the news and certain articles about when everything looks bleak and hope is lost, then the world may end. But that's not entirely true. When certain requirements are met, the world will end regardless if humans' intervention is there. Just the talk. An apocalypse will often contain most eschatology material, like the epiphany of Paul and the Apostle, but need not. The baptism of Jesus in Matthew's Gospel, for example, can be considered apocalyptic, in that the heavens open for the presence of a divine mediator, the dove representing the Spirit of God. And a voice communicates supernatural information, but there is no eschatological element. In popular use, apocalypse often means such a catastrophic end times event, but in the scholarly use, the term is restricted to the visionary or revelatory event. So there's two sides to apocalypse's meaning, apparently. But all these religions and cultures have always talked about it. So it does happen. There's a definite fact, but who or where is this apocalypse? Is it an object or a being? There are people who've made imagined figures or beings or objects of apocalypse. And that's why I'm just wondering, where in this world would such a being reside? Definitely not out in the open. It would definitely have to be hidden, that's for certain. I know it's very questionable why I dare search the topic of such a word in such a moment of the world when things look bleak. But they're not. It's just a hoax at the current moment. It's just someone wants to reset the world sooner than expected for some odd reason or purpose. So bear that in mind as I go through this. Scholars have identified examples of the genre ranging from the mid-2nd century to the 2nd century BC. Christ's era, I imagine, and examples are to be found in Persian and Greco-Roman literature as well as Jewish and Christian. The sole clear case in the Jewish Bible Old Testament is chapters 7-12 of the Book of Daniel. But there are many examples from the non-canonical Jewish works. The Book of Revelation is the only apocalypse in the New Testament, but passages reflecting the genre are to be found in the Gospels and in nearly all genuine Pauline epistles. The polyepistles, also known as the epistles of Paul or letters of Paul, are the 13 books of the New Testament attributed to Paul the Apostle. Although the authorship of some is in dispute, among these epistles are some of the earliest extant Christian documents. So there's thoughts of it being tampered or scribed in a different version? Is that what you mean with 13 books? Strange. Definition and history. Apocalypse has come to be used popularly as a synonym for catastrophe, with the Greek word apokrypse, from which it is derived, means a revelation. It has been defined by John J. Collins as the genre of revelation. Sorry for my lisp at the moment, every time I have a tongue twister. Revelatory literature with a narrative framework, in which a revelation is mediated by an otherworldly being to a human recipient. Disclosing a transcendent reality which is both temporal, in that it envisages eschatological salvation, and spatial insofar as it involves another supernatural world. So you're meaning to say, like at the time when Jesus was born, or other well-known figures in history, there was always a connection between a certain intermediary, like someone that is human, being a recipient, and then some divine or supernatural being explains their purpose or role to them, is what I'm guessing. Collins later refined his definition by adding that apocalypse is intended to interpret present earthly circumstances in light of the supernatural world and of the future, and to influence both the understanding and the behavior of the audience by means of divine authority. So the question is right now, there isn't any form from what I've understood lately given this. So the fact that there has been no obvious signs leads me to believe that we're not in the end times, not even remotely. Now this is based on what I've witnessed, but it's still inconclusive, because if it's only said to a few, it might be already here and people just don't know it. Just because not everyone's received the message, that doesn't mean it necessarily is not here. I don't mean to be negative, but just a thought. The general Jewish and Christian apocalypse flourished from 250 BC to 250 CE, but its antecedents can be traced back much further in the Jewish prophetic and wisdom traditions. Example: Ezekiel 1:3 and Zechariah 1:6 in the mythologies of the ancient Near East, which have left a legacy as symbology, the sea as a symbol of chaos in Daniel 7 and Revelation 13:1. Zoroastrian dualism may also have played a role. The reasons for its rise are obscure, but there seems to be a connection to times of crisis such as the 2nd century BC persecution of the Jews reflected in Daniel's final vision, or the destruction of the temple in 70 CE reflected in 4 Urza and 2 Baruch. It's very confusing the words to choose for. I know each word has a significant explanation and definition, but even still, tongue twisters are not my specialty. Characteristics: apocalyptic revelations are typically mediated through such means as dreams and visions. The ancient world did not distinguish between these. Angels and heavenly journeys. These serve to connect two sets of axes: the spatial axis, which has God and the heavenly realm above and the human world below, and the temporal axis of the present and the future. The revelation thus demonstrates that God rules the visible world, and that the present days are leading to an end time in which divine justice will be done and God's rule will become visible. Mythic images with their roots in text from the Hebrew Bible and rich in symbolic meaning are a significant characteristic of the genre. Further characteristics include transcendentalism, mythology, pessimistics, cosmological and historical surveys, Judaism, including a doctrine of two ages and the division of time in two periods. Numerology example, the number of the beast. The beast, huh? So, what are these? The number of the beast is associated with the beast of Revelation in chapter 13, verse 18 of the book of Revelation. In most manuscripts of the New Testament and English translation of the Bible, the number of the beast is 666. What's that? X, 3, and backwards G, Papyrus 1115. Well, I just want to take a snip of that because something about that looked weird. Bear with me a second when I just open it up in a new link. I have to take a snip because it is kind of relevant, I think. Alright, well, what the heck is this? Number of the beast. Well, who the heck is this beast? Nah. Because they're all saying numbers and then the alphabet. Beast? Let's see now if we can do that. Does it kind of do a question mark? I won't delve too much into this individual because there's no clue. As currently, it's still a myth. This thing is being the beast. With the exception of the Apocalypse of John, the authors of apocalyptic works released their books under pseudonyms, false names, so they weren't actually using their own names, whoever these authors or scribes were, which is a mystery that needs investigating. For all you know, they could have manipulated the whole thing and fabricated historical records in this scenario from the Jewish perspective and other religions, you know. The Book of Daniel, for example, was composed during the 2nd century BCE, but took the name of the legendary Daniel for its hero. The pseudonym may have been used to secure acceptance for the new works, to protect the real authors from reprisals, or because the authors had experienced what they believed to be genuine revelations from the famous past figure, or identified with him and claimed to write on his behalf. Really? You claim to do this on behalf of someone because they passed a message based on a dream that may be similar? Which is what I find very disgruntled and suspicious nowadays. So why are you... You know I'm not looking at you. So, Jewish apocalypse. So are these references to canonical, including proto-apocalyptic, non-canonical, Christian and Gnostic apocalypse, canonical, non-canonical? So these are passages in the verse or chapters and or books that have been made through Jewish and Christian testaments, as well as other religions and cultures. So that ends for who the briefest understanding of what apocalypse is, and now is a reference as to who apocalypse is. So the main thing is to summarize is there some sort of mediator between the living and the dead. By that I mean apocalypse gives the role of work on behalf of God. So you could assume in this case apocalypse could be a cherub or some being of power and influence in this case. So I'm going to read from Undead Unluck because this being is solidified as a book in this case to which quests are given out. I know there's a lot to go through because Apocalypse, its word itself is still a mystery. And for all you know, it could have been translated from Revelations or even some more ancient word that people aren't able to decipher because of the dead languages over the years. As I mentioned, if it's over 100,000 years ago, it's very likely there are languages that have been lost to history because of natural disasters or because there was reasons that humanity should not remember based on someone's intentions. So let's keep it going. Apocalypse's primary function is to dispense quests to the Union, rewarding successful completion with rewards and enforcing penalties for failure. This process is critical in maintaining the balance of power between God and negators. Now, I don't know if there's anything like that in this world, unless you refer to the likes of fae or mythological creatures being the negators in this case. Or superhumans is another example, but I won't say they even matter. This process is critical in maintaining the balance of power between God and negators. With Apocalypse ensuring that the rules of engagement are strictly followed. Its ability to manifest a monstrous face and communicate directly with the Union members adds a layer of intimidation and malice to its interactions. Which is fair, like it's trying to be strict as possible with the rules. So yeah, it has to have some sort of force behind it. Emphasizing its allegiance to God and its enjoyment in the torment of humanity. Now, I don't know if it's entirely true, but based on this anime or genre, that's the understanding. But no one knows what Apocalypse is in this world, if it does exist, or if it's a gender and such, you know? Despite its allegiance, Apocalypse demonstrates a complex understanding of the stakes involved in each quest, showing contempt for interference and begrudging respect for the efforts in the Union. So there's going to be spoilers if people watch Undead Unluck. So I haven't watched or watched the whole thing, so I apologize for boring mistakes. Despite its overall hostility and sadistic personality towards humanity and negators, Apocalypse exhibits moments of care, particularly towards Jews, hinting at a deeper relationship beyond its servitude to God. This unexpected depth of character suggests that Apocalypse, while loyal to God, harbors its own sentiments and perspectives on the ongoing battle between the divine and humanity. Its actions, influenced by both loyalty and a hidden concern for Jews, reveal a multifaceted character caught between the duty to serve and latent desire to see an end to the cycle of violence and suffering. Like really, there is a point in life where you could say you enjoy something, but there are times where you get fed up of it. Like just like if you're doing your job, like you're going to be given roles and responsibilities, but like even you have your moments. Even if you have the power, even if you are divine in an aspect, you'll have moments in your time living where you question that if it's worth it. All the suffering and pain to keep it going on and on. It really does dull one's soul, from my understanding. Because I'm not immortal or have lived as long as this being. I would not know. But it does beg these questions for answers. Why? What was the purpose of suffering, cursing the world? Was it because of a creation gone wrong? Or was it to set a plan in motion for even some more unexpected that is yet to be explained, as towards apocalypse only instructs the quest in this case? Throughout the series, Apocalypse plays a central role in the key story arcs such as the Union arc and the Injustice arc. Its awakening by Foucault to initiate a new series of quests marks the beginning of a strategic battle of wits and wills, with Apocalypse becoming increasingly frustrated by Foucault's tactics to mitigate the tragedies of the Negators. The revelation of its past interactions with Jews and its conflicted feelings during the Injustice arc add layers to its character, presenting Apocalypse not just as a tool of God, but as an entity with its own agency and emotional depth. Through these arcs, Apocalypse emerges as a character that embodies the themes of duty, loyalty, and the complexity of serving a divine master while harboring a nuanced perspective on this conflict at the heart of the undead unlock. Alright. So, this is just getting a description of this being. So, physical strengths. Okay. Hmm. So, no really there, since this is just a fandom based on what people have learned without reading the whole thing in context. And now here's a different version of Apocalypse in form. And you can go on, but the main story is Apocalypse associates with one known as the Phoenix, being the one that brings a ruin to the world. And from what I understand, Apocalypse's main thing is to kind of oversee humanity in a sense, or reset it. That's what I'm wondering. With these negators, mutants, and that's what leads me to believe the other way there are things called Nephilim in this world, or fairy elves, dwarves, all these mythical creatures or beings that are like human but not human. Are these the things that Apocalypse knows about? And if it's all in these religious Bibles and records from cultures, where are they now? Why cannot be seen by our eyes as humans? And this is why I question, are we even on the same plane as people refer to the flat earth theory? Not saying Earth entirely is flat, but our view of the Earth is only one-sided. Being that we are on a round planet, we can only see one side of the dimension, or realm in this case, just being the human side, and the spiritual being all these negators and such. That's what makes me wonder how Apocalypse and the Sun or God have a role in this. Excuse me. I know that's going deep. But everyone's been trying to find out. Just to give you an idea. As people can see, as the Earth produces earthquakes, volcanoes, and other byproducts that forces pockets of magma and lava out from the mantle through the crust, there are then vents, airways, ducts, pockets or even caverns being the case after they, what is the word, expel forms of liquid or minerals from the earth within, leaving all these chambers. And beneath the mantle to crust, I believe there are caverns within this. And my assumption is Apocalypse is very possibly in such a thing. Well, that was already artificially or man-made by the entity. So you have the oceanic, continental, lithosphere, Antonic sphere, upper mantle, lower mantle, outer core, and inner core. So, within this, I imagine it's somewhere in the lower core, where people can't normally enter. Normal people, anyway. And my assumption is these governments and higher beings, being the Nephilim, elves, dwarves, all these mythical beings that are known as the spiritual world, are somehow associated with Apocalypse and God, and these rules and all such. Will I intend to investigate and search for such a being? Are you mad? There's no possible way I could probably do it based on my current circumstance, and my body won't probably endure the journey at the current moment. I know I'm near the prime of my life, but even still, you have to be very prepared for the unexpected in this scenario. Even if I'm weak, not capable of doing exercise, if that were the case, I still need to be very cautious about how to approach certain aspects of this world, be it spiritual or human. I know it's very weird the way I'm talking right now, and you prefer me playing the video games and such. But yeah, even playing the video games, I've been getting to understand some deeper meaning that the game developers have been trying to impart for us, the way we get a glimpse of the true meaning of this world or universe. But anywho, from there on, we'll need to investigate another aspect which makes me question about the situation around Apocalypse's meaning. So from after Apocalypse, we then enter into a very unusual place. Mythical creatures. Increased sightings. The other way people have been talking more about skinwalkers, werewolves, hybrids, chimeras. Apparently there's been very strange videos going around on the internet, you know? So I'll get up a video here, brought to you by Minutes of Horror. So, look familiar? Looks like a lynx of sort, right? So the video might replay.
Like that this video and this news story is real for whatever reason, I ran across this video on X.
Do you notice anything odd about that creature? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Minutes of Horror came across this while searching. Apparently it's a griffin. Now, I don't know if it's a legitimate video or that's the thing. Because of Sora 2 AI video enhancements, you can nearly think it were real, but here's a good way to know. If you use a snipping tool, and why am I going to use the snipping tool? What's the purpose of it? I'm going to take a crop of this picture. I'm going to save it. Then Griffin, Christian, video. Now I'm going to look at images. Thanks for the point, but I'll get to that. I'm going to put this picture in because I need to investigate this. And why do you need to investigate a mythological creature? But not the creature itself, just the video. Is it actually a real creature? That's the question. Oh, we'll find out in a moment. Just have to look through all these images. So, I know it's a bit blurry, but we're going to have a quick look. Now, from what you understand about griffins, if we're to look at, with the overview being King of Beasts, the eagle, king of birds. Griffins are an adversary associated with deposited gold deposits, Central Asia. So, has many different names this creature does. Okay, just have a quick look. Mesopotamia. Griffin-like animals were depicted on cylindrical seals in Mesopotamia of 3000 BC, perhaps early as Uruk period. A winged lion with beaks. So, they were apparently known back in the Babylonian age. Mesopotamia are ancient still. So, it's definitely known in parts of the world as associated with religious or spiritual meanings in this case. Just to summarize. So, it's definitely a chimera of sorts. And the word's always pronounced differently. Griffins of India, gold-digging ants. So wherever you find a griffin, you associate it with gold, apparently. So there's, just like with dragons, you'll find it near gold. Now, generally, griffins are depicted as the head of an eagle with the body of a lion. It's generally what you would associate with. Like it has the head of an eagle with wings and the body of a lion with a tail. Now, that's being the case, do you think this video is real? Like, the quality of it is questionable, but the trees in it do look real. The shadow is there beneath the feet. Unless it was human man-made or manufactured, like a chimera, that's the question. But it's not necessarily an eagle, because it bears horns. Griffins don't normally have horns based on descriptions now, unless it's a different kind. Even for an eagle, even if it had a bigger head, there's something about it. Just looking at this creature. The wings in that do look pretty good. Shading, so it's questionable. Background and foreground. There's no indication, unless it was photoshopped, but it's open for scrutinize, you know? But why am I talking about mythological creatures? Apparently there's been more sightings of such creatures, not just griffins, but other creatures. As we'll just go over minutes of horrors of play of this where he somehow came across it. See how it moves?
So yeah,
So they're like horns, but weird ears.
another mythological creature, a griffin this time, just happens to be roaming through the forest, and the video quality looks just as good as the video quality of the white Iberian lynx. The video's caption reads, "This was..."
In the lynx, that was this. So the question's up for debate, because the Asian lynx apparently went extinct. And that's a very questionable thing to say. The problem is, what am I making a big deal about? Well, my guess is the ancient creatures that come back, or the extinct ones apparently. Be it a griffin, a reptile, like a dinosaur, or a dragon, or other creatures that we were never expecting to see out so publicly, and the way they take it so casually.
Taken on October 23rd, 2025.
October 23rd, 2025. That would be like 2 weeks from now. And not to over skew the whole South, but apparently this was taken from Sierra do Zavizier National Park, a remote dense rainforest along Brazil to Peru. And in the Mayan description, it was mentioned that there were such creatures around gold. So, protectors of evil, maybe? But even still, insisted the creature emitted a guttural, eagle-like screech. Guttural. Deep, creepy-ass voice. Well, why am I making it a big deal about this? As people seen, there are people who've edited videos with Photoshop. Then, by Photoshop, I mean make a creature look out of place in a world that wouldn't normally fit its theme. Now, here's the thing with the Loch Ness. Everyone keeps thinking it's a plesiosaur. But the thing is, it's not. What people didn't expect was there are lampreys that can grow to astronomical sizes. And it's recorded in an old text there where I found in an old library back in the early 18th century, where a knight came across such a being that devoured cattle whole, him with people, and lampreys can go on land and water. That's the thing about them. So it wasn't Nessie. Well, that is an Nessie they interpreted, but people assumed it was a plesiosaur because it would make more sense than some eel with no eyes, right? But yeah, what my point is, all these creatures are becoming more apparent, be it extraterrestrial, marine, lizard, or other. Because there's so many different videos, as you can see, be it human, Mothman, unexplainable creatures as you go down along. People have been recording sightings of fabricated or made-up creatures that may or may not exist in the real world, but the theme is people have become more afraid and believe in such creatures. Even back in the day, with the likes of the Nephilim being giants or other creatures that are unexplainable, there are things in this world that are becoming apparent. Someone is trying to influence us in understanding that the spiritual world or creatures from the other side are coming over. And how does this tie in with the ancient story? Like I said, with Apocalypse being the narrative of this part, as well as other segments, there are creatures that are beginning to make themselves more known, be it negators or beings with unnatural qualities that the humans, being us, will never understand. As we go along, there's a bunch of different subterranean to marine creatures to extraterrestrial to zombies to every sort of unknown creature you find. So as you scroll down, people encounter videos, very brief but glimpse, be it real or fake. You must be aware. Do not always believe what you see. It could be all just a fabricated hologram, or it could be the real thing and your life's in danger. But your emotions are very crucial here. Do not let your emotions get the better of you, okay? Because of this, a lot of strange things have been occurring. And a lot more fear and hostility have become more present because of such things. From simple imaginations to folklore, things have become more apparent. That's the end of that part. But just to keep your mind on track, as a bunch of mythological creatures will keep peeping and popping up. Just be aware, if you see such creatures in real life, be it little pixies to fairies, to dragons to giants, to even human-like creatures of similar proportions like lizardmen, werewolves, apes, yetis, bigfoots, and other such creatures like elves and dwarves or similar like appearances. You must be aware to keep your eyes in check, keep your senses alert. For all you know, it could be all in your head, as people say about mental health being apparently more common nowadays, which has made me a lot more suspicious why they're talking about mental health now more than ever. And a lot of crazy things are beginning to occur, causing fear, disorganization, thoughts from prisons being more open-minded to letting out prisoners for no apparent reason. So this leads me to believe there is a plot and ploy in place. I have become aware of it for the last number of years. And certain actors, be it secret societies and governments, have been taking their positions to play their part in confusion of the world at large, as I mentioned, with negators or people with certain qualities that are taking on these roles to dumbfound humanity, making it into the form of idiocracy to play everyone for a fool. And I have become more aware, and I know this social media is no better playing on Twitch or YouTube or Kick. But I am keeping my eyes open, my ears adjusted, because all these creatures and other facets of reality have become more aware. Now, I'm not saying I've encountered such creatures recently in years, but I definitely have had brief glimpses, but no proper interactions. Because, as said, negators and humans or these otherworldly creatures won't normally associate with you because of such actors being an apocalypse or a divine intervention. So you must be aware of all these things that are going on in this world. So where do I go from apocalypse to mythological creatures, be it extraterrestrial to marine to alien to eldritch? What else do I need to discover for this ancient story to make even more confusion and sense to us? Let's see. Everyone keeps talking. Everyone keeps listening. You wish to know. So, I guess the next thing is to look towards the sun. Why the sun? Because apparently there was something called Trialis, and at the same time, during this, we're in a period when the supermoon, being the lunar eclipse, is meant to occur, which I mentioned in my previous video in the ancient story, and how it ties in to this part of the story. The sun and moon, they're the next aspects of this world we're going to need to look into. Now, apparently, I'm just going to read up a brief article that occurred live science. Now, I'm not sure if it's accurate or if it's old news or it's just fabricated, but just take it with a grain of salt, everyone. And the next Carrington level solar superstorm could wipe out all our satellites, and new simulations reveal. This was done on the 30th of October 2025. Like I mentioned, every 20 years or so, the sun has hotspots and do more damage with solar flares, apparently, based on what the scientists from NASA and other astronomical sources have been claiming, which is a telltale sign of some plot and ploy at play. So, for anyone who's listening and watching, get candles and also old methods of just say keeping yourself right, like grow fruit and vegetables in a garden, or just go to the nearest plant that's safe to eat from. Make sure you have clean water, make sure you have okay housing, or if just say you're homeless and you're watching this, make sure to go to somewhere where it has good sturdy grounds and you can get shelter, like a cave or a tree. I know it's silly. Anyone will cover, even in the most unexpected places, like in slotted units for cattle. Underneath that, it can be helpful, or even under bunkers, as people have been preparing to make, apparently. A lot of rich people have been making underground bunkers in this world. In Switzerland, it's very common, and in Ireland with Newgrange and other such monuments or landscapes, there are such terrains. So make sure to get cover, keep yourself right, because if electrical systems get knocked out, we could be going back to the Stone Age without electricity, you know? Not entirely, we are well aware, though all means of transport, will be electrical, will be offline. So if you have a car battery, you might be bollocks. Well, you'll have your ways. But enough of that. So, Hurricane event. This was back in 1859. Could wreak havoc on Earth orbiting satellites, and it's a question of when, not if, this will happen. Experts say. When you simple adds. New simulations reveal that no spacecraft safety will be fully guaranteed when the next Carrington-level solar storm strikes our planet. Now, this is based on, the way when people have their power outages, whole towns go down, cities, for brief moments. You have to have backup generators. With the current situation being, if a huge solar flare gets Earth when its magnetic field is currently at its weakest, which it is right now, and then the supermoon, which is going to have influence on the waves of the Earth, being the sea, which is going to cause some gravitational disturbances as well as magnetic field disturbances. Basically, it's going to be a little chaotic with weather. The wind's definitely going to be on the side for this, you want, because after this, you better hope you have nature at your side or you're in bother. I'm not saying nature doesn't have anyone's side. You really hope you're not on the wrong side. But yeah, worrying new simulations show that a solar storm on par with the infamous Carrington event could potentially wipe out every single satellite orbiting our planet, leaving us in a precarious and expensive predicament. And experts say such a powerful solar storm is inevitable and will hit our planet sooner or later. This was back a little less than 200 years ago. So what is the Carrington event? For people who are unaware, like myself. Because since I was born in 1995, which is still 100 years more, what would a Carrington event do today? The world has become far more dependent on electricity than it was when the Carrington event occurred. If a similar powerful solar flare that was pointing at the Earth as opposed to away from our planet, where it would not have any direct consequences for our world, were to explode now, it might cause unprecedented damage. For example, a 2013 study from British insurance giant Lloyd's of London estimated that electrical outages from a Carrington-level event might lead up to $2.6 trillion in lost revenue for North American power industry alone. Yeah, the money is constantly going up, it seems, for inflation. The study also found global blackouts up to years-long might occur because such an event could simultaneously damage multiple extra high-voltage transformers that are difficult to replace. This could in turn result in major disruptions to financial markets, banking, telecommunications, business transactions, emergencies, and hospital services, the pumping of water, fuel, and food transport. So yeah, make sure any money you have in your bank that is kind of where you might want to at least keep it where you're not going to lose it. So take out any and all money you have in your banks, in other words, because you might need it. Out the way. Like keep a savings on yourself. So similarly, 2017 study in the journal Space Weather found that most extreme blackout scenario impacting 66% of the US population alone. Now it's only reference to America, which is oddly. But one thing you should keep in mind, if you do have electrical appliances, keep them hidden under elements that are non-reactive to magnetic field disturbances, being lead or just a big chunk of lead or iron nearby. It'll help. At least your phone won't go busted. But yeah, the way the world is, and then also, no, should actually do this. Just gonna take out a tab. Yeah. Because like if a power outage does occur, okay, we're gonna look at Switzerland. Many rich people. Now there are videos about all these stuff, but if a big blackout does occur, this will also affect aviation, flying objects like rockets and planes in the sky. And that'll do major damage, and they could literally fall on top of houses and kill people. And then you have, just say, nuclear reactors. Though they're powered by nuclear power, they were to be disrupted by a magnetic field, they could cause chain reaction and radiation could leak in ways, So no. Yeah. The Guardian, it talks about Switzerland has more nuclear bunkers than any other country. It has more than 370,000 nuclear bunkers, enough to shelter every member of the population. But that is questionable. Why does Switzerland have so many bunkers? What do they know that the rest of the world doesn't? At first, Zora Zilbert, the chief operations officer and tour guide at Sonnenberg nuclear bunker in Lucerne, Switzerland, wasn't sure whether the requests she was receiving were a joke. It was February 2022 and Russia had just dropped their first bombs over Kiev. People were asking me what kind of measures should they take, where they would have to go. Shelberg said she quickly realized they had confused the historical society she works for. Surviving underground for the local Department of Civil Protection. Population of nearly 9 million has more than bunkers per capita more than anywhere else in the world. Because if you think about it, Switzerland, where it is right now, is between Russia and other bodies that have nuclear power. So it would make sense generally. Like, how much time did that take to make all them bunkers? And that was only one example. Okay, I'll agree because I'm incognito. You can't really get my information. Then you have Spain. Construction of private bunkers in Spain rises to 100% as fear of war in Europe grow. And this is what I was saying. The other way I mentioned about apocalypse and how these caverns and vents occurred from volcanoes. So it's very possible there's something beneath the crust where these people are making bunkers that they aren't aware of. They're basically being lined up for death that announced to them. And how do I know this? Well, to keep it simple, if there were other such creatures or ancestors that did similar tactics, who would be the predator back then to now? Your moles or other subterranean creatures? So it's very possible there are other creatures that we're not aware of in the world that are beneath the surface, hidden in the dark. But as other countries, as well as rich people, start making more of these, you kind of get more aware, you know? Operating theaters, bowling alleys, and home cinemas not happy with safe rooms, the super rich are building luxury fortresses. This was done back last year, 2024, of August 7th. So, why the underground bunkers and what's the need for them? CNN. Alright. Armageddon is another word for apocalypse, or Ragnarok. Just to keep it simple, Koryu helped secure a 27-floor private home in Mumbai for the billionaire industrialist Prakash Ambani, whose son Arnak recently made headlines with his lavish wedding celebrations. Is currently working on a sprawling house on a 200-acre wooded plot with an undisclosed location in the US. He is understandably tight-lipped about many aspects of his work. So could you imagine that? An underground bunker with all these facilities. And apparently there's so many more bunkers unannounced to the world. So how long would you think it would take for people to start excavating? And you know the way there's rumors about Jewish people making underground churches and such. Why is that? It leads me to believe there is something coming, but why is everyone going underground? What are they hiding from? Why is it that we don't know? Likes of asteroid belt, incoming meteorites, something destroying or burning the surface of the earth? Like, unfortunately, Ireland, closest thing you have to underground bunkers is going to them extinct volcanoes. Those are closest things to them. Not joking, there are a few underground bunkers, being as volcanoes in this case. The nearest one here would be the Fleas Blue Mountains, because that's one of the oldest mountains in the world, believe it or not. So it's very likely you could find a bat'leth or an empty underground cavern that could be used for such housing for, in the case of an event of having to go underground. Just a thought. I know it's crazy and it's an example for a cave, but volcano is pretty sturdy. Might be a little worn out, but if it can withstand whatever's to come, an extinct volcano is the best option. So, just for people who are from Ireland who are watching this, I guess, just have a look at volcanoes in Ireland. Extinct volcanoes. Ah, no, there is more volcanoes than white. So, where am I getting these? So, everyone can see these. See where there's red spots. These are where there's still magma present in the volcanoes. So, if you want to go to an active volcano, these would be it. And you see where there's a lot of wet, cold spots. That's a question that you'd want to know. And I'll use those, the sleeve, mountains contain caves. Now, the Sleep Bloom Mountains is quite big. It's connected between a few parts. No, not that. Let's go have a look at the image. Like, there's things called catholes. It's basically goes from around Kennedy by Mount Mellick out along the way. Well, it's no, there's waterfalls, there's other places, so it's over 300 meters high in places. But wherever you have waterfalls, very likely nature reserve. There in the nature reserve, you'd probably find your entrance to a cave. Well, just an example. But yeah, just with all this apocalypse thing going on, this and the other. So if you're in Ireland, look for caves. Like in the Burren is another example where all the wolves apparently came from. But yeah, all these stories about underground bunkers, apocalypse, and mythological creatures, something is stirring, and the AI and news media are trying to cover up the whole scenario of what's coming, because people don't want to be known. Because all the rich people don't want peasants, being us in this case, to know about what's going on in this world. I can pull out wild guess, like the end times could be coming. Very likely. But we just don't know. Well, that's what some people say. So, after that, how does this occur? What does this mean? That's the question. From the end of the world and all this, if this has occurred where this period of when the sun does solar flare bursts to knock out electrical communication over a period of time, being a few years, it's happened more than once over the time. And that is one creepy ad. But yeah, as we go on, from there on, this is what the Nash, not just NASA, but other people, you can get these alerts. This is from the SWPC. So what is this? Space Weather Message Code ALTEF3, serial number 3555, issue time November 4, 2025. Oh, it's an update. It's a website if you want to keep in mind. So what you could do is keep it in the tips section. Alerts, watches, and warnings. Very important to have such things on hand. For people who aren't sure of the situation, this being the case. So, potential satellite impacts. Well, probably be a good idea if I zoom in for people to actually view this better. Because, like, it is hard to read from there. So, continued alert. Electron to MEV internal flux exceeded 1000 PFU. Continuation serial number 3554. Began time. This is on the 31st of October. This is when the alert first occurred. Potential impacts. Satellite systems may experience significant charging, resulting in increased risk to satellite systems. This being the case, satellite failures throughout the world. So all known satellites and other objects present in outer space around the Earth may go offline, or worse, if the solar wind has force behind it, could send them hurtling back to the Earth because they don't have any energy to keep self-sustained. Space weather message. Work 04, serial number 5135, issue time 2025, November 04, 0255 UTC. Extended warning. Geomagnetic K index of 4 expected extension to serial number 5134. So, like I mentioned with the solar flare, there is also a high chance, since the Earth is currently at a low magnetic field phase because it's swapping poles at the moment. It does this every so often. But then you have to include, I should probably bring this up, just the way I'm not just speaking out my air hole for people who aren't unsure. It might be hard to detect the supermoon visually, but it does have an effect on Earth because the moon is in the closest approach to Earth. It can cause higher tides than usual. So if you think about when electrical disturbances being magnetic field are being brought on by the sun, what else do you get? So you'd also get more ocean currents being distorted, and then you're going to have more, just say, tsunamis. And if an earthquake does occur, just say if someone soft nuclear bomb hit a volcano that's currently active. Even worse, in the Ring of Fire over by the Pacific, like what Russia did not long ago. Just to actually bring that up, because idiots, I don't know what they were thinking, did that. This was back in August, so hopefully the Guardian has some reaction to the earthquake and the tsunami. Good thing these news media still don't like Russia, which kind of helps bring down information being searched. Yeah, I'll just accept it. It's not like you're going to see what I do in incognito mode. So, Russia nuclear submarine base damage after earthquake report. This article is more than 2 months old, which is back in August, just to give people a heads up. Where's that? Satellite images show that the floating pier at rabbid base after last week 8.8 magnitude earthquake. It also affected Japan and parts of America, just to be aware of, because it nearly went on the fault line around the Pacific Ring of Fire, which did trigger some activity when the mantle or volcanic activity. A nuclear submarine base in Russia's remote Far East was damaged last week after one of the most powerful earthquakes to hit the area in decades. The New York Times reported on Monday, citing satellite images. Photos captured by Planet Labs, the commercial satellite imaging firm, show damage to a floating pier at the Rabaki submarine base on the Kamchatka Peninsula. Just to let you know, if you look down here, near Japan, that's where it is. It's near Japan. Okay? One section of the pier appears to be broken away from its anchor point. So, aside from the damaged pier, satellite imagery does not show any other major destruction. Readers cannot independently verify the report. Russia's defense ministry did not immediately respond to a request for the comment. Of course not, like, you don't want people knowing. Well, apparently something was experimented on and caused a disturbance and such. If you look through the other recalls, reaction to earthquake off Russia and tsunami warnings across the Pacific. So if anyone who was experimenting did that during the time of the solar flare and supermoon with Earth being at its weakest, it could set off more than a standard reaction. It could really fuck up the whole world. Because like the Pacific Ring of Fire is a range of active volcanoes, and they're connected to the tectonic plates. So if someone hit it at the same time with all this activity going on, being the solar flare knocks out all the electrical communications, then the supermoon affecting the tides, and at the same time, some idiot saw off a nuke or it was accidentally detonated, just say around the Pacific Ring of Fire, it would cause massive disaster and do what it did in the Great Flood back years ago. If I'm not saying if it's a possibility, if this actually happened, God Lord, you want more in a bowl, you want a whole, you definitely want a good ship anyway. I don't think the planes will be good because if these things can reach the height of skyscrapers, you definitely want to be well above the ground or below. That's one thing you'd want to be. Being on Mount Everest won't be a bad option in this case, you know? As in, what is it, a 2025 thing? Just to be aware of all these disasters going on, you need to be careful. But yeah, The supermoon, by the way. At its closest point, full moon can appear up to 14% bigger and 30% brighter than the faintest moon of the year, which occurs from its farthest from the Earth in its orbit. It's just because of the magnetism. It might be hard to detect the supermoon visually, but it does have an effect on the Earth because the moon's closest approach to the Earth can cause higher tides than usual. So, supermoon day, which is tomorrow. Just to be sure, what time is that around here? And then there's another one in December. So between them months, so that'll be like during lunchtime. Huh. Probably just what is universal time coordinate? Okay, so basically that's what it's gonna say for now. Alright. So yeah. Something to know. Keep that in mind. So there was one in October, one in November, and there'll be one in December. Event. 1, 2, 3. So during this time, so we have the sun and moon. I know it was a poor drawing, but look. Facts. So how's this meant to affect anything? This was taken back a few years ago. Because the Earth and the moon are getting closer. Well, the moon gets close to the Earth. So during this, there's going to be a lot of chaos, just for people to know. But as I was saying, there's more warnings of more chances of geomagnetic disturbances with the storm. So just bear this in mind. Always keep in touch with the news. This is from the USA government, okay? Now, it's not the same for Ireland, so you might want to keep up to date. As this goes on, these are the monsters that could actually be real according to experts. What monsters? Vampire, huh? Ooh. Would you ever? Not now. So you have vampire, the yeti, sea serpents. Well, yeah, of course you're not gonna have giant underground sea creatures, like Leviathan, for instance. Oarfish are pretty darn big, 8 meters long. Now, it's very possible there's even bigger creatures that people aren't aware of, like whales, for instance. Griffin, kraken, which is like the sea squid, or it could be something else. Mermaids, definitely see stuff like that in the ocean, like dolphins, but you can definitely see something like that. Then the Minotaur, that's something you wanted me. Unicorns, Basically, yeah, with the Minotaur, you find that in mazes, but why mazes? Could be labyrinths to some underground bunker, you know? Unicorns, Bigfoot, the Eppie mermaid, Loch Ness, which also could be the lamprey, Cardiff giant. What is that? And then the Cottingley fairies. But yeah, just to know about that. Since it's incognito, you're not going to be able to see what I like. So just bear in mind, there's going to be a lot of disturbances this coming month. You're going to see a lot of crazy shit. So everyone who's watching, keep your wits about you and try not to freak out. You might see something that might blow your cap from shattering skies to other whatnots. Well, for now, with this ancient story, this is the other fragment that seems to be made aware of. Apocalypse, involving the mythological creatures from ancient to present day times. With the sun and moon and then the earth being at its weakest when magnetic field trips, there might be the end of the world with the flood. The electricity might go. You might start seeing extraterrestrial creatures to mythological creatures. So bear this in mind with the AI videos. Some secret societies will take advantage of this chaos, as they are already trying to implement more to incite fear. Do not let them make you weak. Be strong, regardless of what you feel and fear. You have a heart, you have a soul. You have a head too, use it. Use that friggin' head like you know how to count when it comes to your favorite things. Or when you want to count all your coins. Or other stuff. But yeah, as the story goes, more crazy things will occur. And I will talk about more in this ancient story as I begin to uncover more cryptic meanings behind this. Okay, everyone? See you soon.